You're running too hard on your easy days and too easy on your hard days. That's it. That's the mistake killing your progress right now, and you don't even know you're doing it. I want you to think about your last easy run. Be honest. Was it actually easy, or was it that annoying medium pace where you're not quite dying, but you're definitely not having a conversation either? Yeah, that one. That's the pace that's been sabotaging you for months, maybe years, and nobody told you because just run more sells better than the truth. Here's the truth. In the early 2000s, a physiologist named Seiler started digging through training logs of elite endurance athletes, rowers, cyclists, cross-country skiers, distance runners, and found something almost stupidly consistent. About 80% of their training volume happened at low intensity, comfortably below their lactate threshold, and only around 20% happened at genuinely hard efforts. Not 60-40, not 50-50, 80-20. Across sports, across countries, across decades. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern too strong to ignore. Now here's the part that stings. When researchers looked at what recreational runners actually do, most of them aren't training polarized at all. They're training in the middle, comfortably uncomfortable, hard enough to feel productive, easy enough to feel safe. Sports scientists call it the gray zone, and it's basically a treadmill to nowhere. You accumulate fatigue without accumulating real fitness. You ever wonder why some runner at your local Saturday group run seems to get faster every month while you're stuck running the exact same pace you ran a year ago? This is probably why. They're not working harder than you. They're working smarter on the days that matter and actually resting on the days that don't. Let's do the reality check, because I promised you data, and I'm not about to give you a motivational poster with no receipts. A study by exercise physiologist Jonathan Esteve-Lanao, published back in 2005, took distance runners and split them into two groups. One group trained with a more traditional, threshold-heavy approach, lots of that medium-hard tempo work. The other trained closer to the 80-20 split, mostly easy, with focused hard sessions. The polarized group improved their 10K times significantly more over the training block. Same weekly mileage, roughly. Different intensity distribution. Different results. That's not motivation poster nonsense. That's a controlled comparison. So why does everybody still run their easy days too fast? Ego, mostly. Nobody wants to get passed by a guy walking his dog. Nobody wants their GPS watch to show a pace that looks embarrassing on Strava. So you creep it up. 10 seconds here, 15 there, and suddenly your recovery run has the same heart rate as your tempo run from last week. Congratulations, you've just trained the same system twice and rested 0 times. Here's the number that should actually bother you. Lactate threshold, the point where your body starts producing lactate faster than it can clear it, typically sits somewhere around 85 to 90% of your max heart rate for a lot of runners. Your easy runs should be nowhere close to that. We're talking 60 to 70% of max heart rate territory. If you can't hold a conversation in full sentences on your easy run, you're not running easy. You're running scared of being slow, which is a completely different thing. I'm not telling you to run slower because slow is virtuous. I'm telling you to run slower because it's the only way your mitochondria, the actual engines inside your muscle cells, get the low-intensity stimulus they need to multiply and get more efficient at burning fat for fuel. That adaptation doesn't happen at threshold pace. It happens in the boring zone, the zone your ego hates. And this isn't just about speed. It's about your heart, literally. Research on long-term endurance training has shown that consistent low-intensity work improves stroke volume, the amount of blood your heart pumps with every beat, which means your resting heart rate drops, your cardiovascular system gets more efficient, and you're doing your future self a favor that has nothing to do with your next race medal. This is health work disguised as training. That's the part most running channels never say out loud. Let me give you a second piece of evidence, because one study is an anecdote and 2 studies is a pattern. Researchers analyzing training intensity distribution across multiple endurance sports, published in a review by Seiler and Tennyson, found that athletes who trained polarized versus those who trained in that gray middle zone consistently showed better performance outcomes with lower markers of overtraining and chronic fatigue, lower injury risk, less burnout. You're not just getting faster with this method, you're protecting your body from the thing that ends most runners' seasons: breakdown. All right, so what do you actually do with this? It's not complicated, and I refuse to make it complicated just to sound smart. Take your weekly runs. Roughly 8 out of every 10 of them should feel almost suspiciously easy. Nose breathing, chatting with a friend, why am I even wearing a watch easy? The other 1 or 2 sessions, you go hard. Real hard. Intervals, tempo work, hill repeats. Whatever gets your heart rate into that 85% plus zone for genuine, uncomfortable, controlled chaos. No middle ground. No gray zone. You're either recovering or you're racing your own limits. Nothing in between. Here's a question worth sitting with. What if the reason you keep getting injured or burnt out isn't that you're not tough enough, but that you've never actually let your body rest long enough to absorb the hard work you're already doing? Toughness isn't the missing ingredient. Restraint is. And restraint is way harder for a runner's ego to swallow than another hill sprint. Let's talk about how to actually know you're in the right zone, because run easy means nothing if you don't have a way to check it. Heart rate is one option, but the talk test is free, and it works. If you can speak in full sentences without gasping, you're easy. If you're answering in 3-word chunks, you've drifted into the gray zone without noticing. Another option, and this one surprises people, is slowing down more than feels natural. If your easy pace doesn't feel almost embarrassingly slow at first, you're probably still running too fast. That discomfort you feel about going slow, that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's a sign your ego hasn't caught up to the science yet. I remember pacing a guy, mid-30s, decent shape, frustrated because his 5K time hadn't moved in over a year despite him running 5 days a week. Every single run in his log sat in that same medium-hard zone. Every day, kind of tired. Never quite recovered, never quite maximal. We cut his hard days down to 1 real quality session a week and forced the rest into embarrassingly easy territory. Within 6 weeks, his 5K dropped by almost 2 minutes. Not because he suddenly became a different athlete, because he finally let his body do what it was already capable of doing. Here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it matters just as much as pace. Sleep is where the actual adaptation happens. You can nail the 80-20 split perfectly and still stall out if you're not sleeping enough, because the mitochondrial growth, the muscular repair, the hormonal recovery, none of that peaks while you're awake. It peaks while you're asleep. So if you're doing everything right on paper and still not improving, before you blame your training plan, look at your bedtime. This is why we say running is a health practice, not just a performance one. Your training and your recovery are the same system, not 2 separate things. And that's the moment that should hit you right now, mid-video, no music swelling in the background, just you and the truth. You don't need more willpower. You don't need a new pair of shoes or a fancier watch or another motivational quote taped to your bathroom mirror. You need to slow down on purpose so you can speed up when it counts. That's the whole secret. It was never a secret. It was just inconvenient, because slowing down doesn't feel like progress in the moment, even though it's the only thing that's actually building it. Go back through your last 2 weeks of runs right now, tonight, after you finish watching this. Look at your paces. Be brutally honest about which ones were actually easy and which ones were your ego running the show. I guarantee you'll be uncomfortable with what you find. Good. Uncomfortable is where the fixing starts. But slowing down your easy runs is only half the equation, and there's a part of this most runners get completely backwards. Something happening in your knees every single time your foot hits the pavement, and whether daily running is quietly wrecking your joints or actually protecting them is not what you think. That's next. If this hit home, do me a favor. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it, drop a like, and tell me in the comments where in the country you're watching from. I want to see how far this reaches. Share it with the training partner who always runs their easy days too fast. You know exactly who that is. And if you want deeper breakdowns like this one, the channel membership link is pinned in the comments below. See you in the next one.